Hey, here we are. What's up, folks? This is Addy, and it is one day before election primary day tomorrow, Tuesday, May 24th, here in Georgia. And I'm at Wild Wings Cafe in Dunwoody on yet another stop on the Real Georgia Speaks Team Trump bus tour, hosted and led by John Fredericks. And we got a great guest, Mallory Staples, who's a candidate in the Georgia 6th Congressional District race, which I think is one of the more contested or highly contested races and one of the more talked about races in the state. But I want to thank you for coming on the show today, Miss Staples. I know we only have a few minutes, and it is a rainy day here in Georgia, or at least in the Atlanta area. But I just wanted to ask you what your priorities would be in Congress, and then again, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. And yes, it is a rainy day here in Georgia. We are knocking doors today, so forgive my casual attire. Just happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, for me, I get this question frequently. It's a great metric to kind of read a candidate. And so my answer would be election integrity, national security, and the economy. And interestingly, all those things really kind of convene together at our border with what's happening at the border. National security is just of utmost importance because what's happening at the border affects our election integrity process so much. We've had 2 million illegals come into the country under this administration, and a lot of people don't realize it, but they're counted in the census, and that affects the number of Democratic seats that this administration is allowed to acquire in the House. And with that being unwatched and ungoverned by them, we're in a real dangerous position of having a one-party government. You have Republicans not being able to vote and pass bills, and really one party loses their voice when they can control that. It's a major threat. And I'm constantly getting calls and texts right now from people in district that are concerned about things they're seeing at the polls, about their votes, about not being able to find their vote, or going in to check and they have 2 votes, or, election integrity is just of utmost importance to myself and the constituents. And then, of course, there's the economy. I mean, we are absolutely, the U.S. citizens are getting beaten down. Again, you have people coming into the country illegally, breaking our laws, first and foremost, when they come in, and then being treated better than a lot of U.S. citizens. They're going to draw down on healthcare, on education, on other government programs without paying a dime in. And we already have a crumbling economy right now. We're seeing it across the board. I can't think of an area that's untouched at the moment. I mean, I talk to small business owners every single day on the phone and in person that are having to, limit hours of their restaurants, having to cut back, they're having to cut employees or close altogether. So it's just atrocious what's happening down there under this administration, what's being allowed to happen. Just, again, unchecked. They lie about it. When you watch these congressional hearings and things, we're just starved for real courageous leadership and what I feel like needs to be citizen leaders for sure. This is our moment.
Excellent, ma'am. And I wanted to ask about Ukraine as well, because it does seem, as far as I know, McCormick's definitely more of a, my interpretation, more of a war hawk side as far as the Ukraine side goes, whereas Jake Evans is a little, depending on who he's talking to, you might get a different answer. So I just wanted to ask about Ukraine as well.
Yeah, I think you're right in your assessment of both of my opponents. And that's pretty terrifying when it depends on who you're talking to, what your answer is. For me, I am not at all comfortable in sending certainly our men and women in uniform to the Ukraine and more money. I mean, I have yet to even get a straight account. I was watching C-SPAN the other day where sitting congressional leaders were asking for transparency, for granularity around what the almost $14 billion has been used for that we sent to the Ukraine last month, as they were considering the 40 more billion to send this month. And there were no answers. I don't think anyone has a good grasp of what's going on over there. And for me, That is a hard pause. We have 650,000 American citizens living in the streets. Yet Congress is willing in this administration to send money in the middle of an economic crisis, in the middle of one, to the other side of the world to protect and serve people that, and we can't even tell what's going on. I mean, nobody has any answers. It's just more money, more money, more money, less emphasis on the US citizens, more emphasis on the global theater. And I'm 100% opposed to that. I just think there's such a lack of wisdom, and we can't get a clear read on the legitimate threat to US interests and sovereignty. Like, what is that? I mean, it's just nobody has any answers, but everyone's very quick in Congress to continue to send money over. It does not make sense to me. I think it does not make sense to most citizens who think rationally and do not function as politicians and bureaucrats. And we, I run on America First platform, and I really mean that. And so what is happening right now in our governance is not America First. It's America, but it looks like last. Honestly, with this new thing coming out about the baby formula the past week, that they've, halted manufacturing of that in our country, but yet you see footage from multiple other countries around the world, one of which is Mexico. They have plenty of baby formula. I mean, there's a hostility towards the American people that is openly being put forward by this administration that I've never seen in my lifetime. And it's intolerable. It's evil, and it needs to be addressed. And I think it's going to take the citizens to do that.
Tangentially related to Ukraine, where do you think, because the U.S. has military bases basically all over the world, where do you think the sphere of influence should end for the United States as far as foreign policy goes? Where should that boundary be?
Well, I mean, I think you have to take that, situation by situation. But I'll tell you where it has to start. It has to start here on our soil, at our border, and taking care of our people. And they haven't even started that. That is not happening under this administration. They have halted the protection of the American people and the sovereignty of the United States. They've eviscerated the concept of citizenship completely with what's happening at the border. So, I mean, I can't even address where it ends when it hasn't started. I mean, but it is upside down and backwards, that we need to get eyes focused on being here at home immediately. I mean, Biden coming out and saying, hey, we're going to just jump in and fight the war for Taiwan against China without any indication. I mean, can we do that? Do we even have the bandwidth to do that? What does that look like? I mean, the whole thing, it's literally like listening to kids speak on the playground, who you just kind of roll your eyes because they have no idea at their age. They can't reason it. They can't understand it. They don't know what they're talking about. So people, kids just fire back and forth, pointless, meaningless. Well, when you take that to a global stage, that's very dangerous. That is very dangerous to be mouthing off about, getting into a war with China. The whole thing is ludicrous to me. And I'm, as a citizen, you think, okay, rational minds are going to prevail here. You kind of hold out to that hope. Well, where are the rational minds? Where are they? It's going to have to be us. I say this all the time, but we need those citizen leaders who are not in it for themselves, that are doing it sacrificially, because somebody's going to have to start making the hard decisions and having the really hard conversations and requiring accountability as well as transparency. It's going to be on the people, and we can do it. We absolutely can do it, but we need to do it now.
I wanted to ask your thoughts and ideas on education, as well as if you wanted to add any comments about your rivals in your race, the other candidates in the 6th Congressional District. So, yeah, whichever one you want to take first.
Well, I mean, I'm passionate about education. Having been a teacher, having taught my own children, I just have a heart for that. And I know the power of education. I do think a lot of what we are standing in the middle of, this mess right now in our country, when it comes to the far left, what we're seeing happen with the sexualization of children, trying to normalize things that are wrong and unlawful and unthinkable. This wokeism, as everybody likes, it's a harvest on decades of indoctrinating our children to not love America, to question their family, to embrace these radical, Marxist ideals. This is a result of education. We've taken civics out. We have such civic illiteracy in our country. And I tell people all the time, if you do not understand what your freedom costs, you can't value it. And I think we're seeing that. So we need to reform education first and foremost. And this is nothing new. Most people in the race say this from a platform, standpoint. But would love to see the end of the Department of Education and that governance return to the states and in the hands of the people. The parents, these school boards powered by parents. Commissions, just leadership needs to be returned to the states. The federal government is a complete failure at most things that they attempt to do. And education would certainly fall under the umbrella of that statement. And I don't see rewarding them with continued governance of that when they failed at it so miserably. So, it's kind of like what they told me at the border. It's not that we don't understand what policies work and don't work. I mean, we've figured it out at this point, but we need people brave enough to step forward and demand that those policies be put in place or cut, agencies that aren't working, get a hold of the budget. I mean, everybody can talk all the talking points, but who's going to actually do it? And your question about my opponents, again, I often say, very simply, it's the why. The why people do things is what folks need to drill down on. The intention of your heart, what motivates you, is going to be very telling as far as a leader of what type of decisions they will make when they're in DC. And for me, what distinguishes me from my main two opponents is my why. I am not, there's no agenda here for me. I wasn't bred into this. I never had my sights set on being in DC and being part of the political system. This is not a career path for me at all. It's wholly sacrificial. I'm doing it because I feel called to do it. And because, as I mentioned previously in this interview, it is a moment for citizens to take back governance as our founding fathers intended. Our country was founded on parents that looked at tyranny and said, no, we will do the hard things and we will do it for this next generation. We will build something worthy of our children and honoring to God. And I think we're seeing that again. And so for me, when I'm in DC and everybody tells you, everyone will agree, they come after you. They come after you. And there's nothing that they can entice me with if I don't want to be there to begin with, but I'm doing it sacrificially. And I'm doing it to honor my children and my nation. That's a different filter than, hey, what's my next seat I'm running for? And how do I get on these how do I work my way up the ladder? And I certainly don't feel entitled to it in any way. So again, it's that rebirth of servant leaders. And I think having a servant's heart is what our country is lacking. And there's many people like myself running across the country, parents, former military, people that are willing to serve, that have no political aspirations. And I think those types of leaders, George Washington called them the reluctant leaders. He was one. I think it is in the hands of those types of leaders that the country is the safest, our children are the safest, and we'll do the hard things and give our lives for it and not be concerned about what our personal benefits are and what the next step is for us politically. So I think it's the heart of the matter.
Excellent. And one more question on education, then we can pivot. University tuition, the cost of going to university, and then student loans. Do you have any ideas or solutions for that issue? Because it does seem to be we're going back to the Victorian area where only the uber wealthy can even afford to go to school.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was up in Dawson County a couple of weeks ago at one of their high schools that has an incredible program to equip kids with another option other than college. I mean, I think that the premise that everyone should go to college is not true. There are a lot of ways that kids can have incredible careers, and rather than going into debt, can immediately start making money and making good money. So I think we need to give kids the option. and stop that narrative that everybody needs to go to college, for starters. We need in the workforce, we need these skilled workers. We're lacking, and that's just a whole economic cycle there that kind of runs. And so I love to see that promoted. They've done an incredible job up there. The facility they had, one in particular was for culinary education. The other one was for fabrication and production of woodworking and all these things. I mean, it was just entirely impressive, and their success rates are incredible. So they're putting these kids out into the workforce who are independent, who don't need the government, who don't need their parents, who aren't saddled with debt, and who are being successful immediately. So I think that's a key component as well. When I think of colleges and I think about, they are literally hotbeds for Marxism and communism. I mean, the collegiate elite have been very complacent in indoctrinating our kids. And so I would implore parents, quite honestly, to quit sending your kids and all your money to these institutions that are that hate you, that are against America and our very way of life and what you believe and what you've taught your children for 18 years. I would love to see people stop endowing these institutions with their hard-earned money. And, it's our time to take a cultural check here and say, we get to vote in other ways other than just our vote. We vote with our money. We vote with where we send our kids to school. And let's start rewarding, good behavior and punishing bad behavior. So, and I certainly am not for, forgiving all debt for college. I mean, I can't even, I really am not sure how that conversation even got started, but, again, it's just socialism with a different label on it. So I'm definitely not in favor of that.
Sure.
I mean, the concept of personal responsibility, of taking care of yourself, is something that we need to bring back. We have become a welfare nation. That whole mindset of sticking your hand out and asking, somebody asked me at an event the other night about a couple of different issues and said, what do you think the government should do about that? And I said, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I said, I don't think that's the job of the federal government. I think that's the job of communities and the church to assist those particular issues. So we've just got to stop looking at the government for everything. It is operating well outside of its constitutional rights even now, and we need to shrink it significantly on multiple fronts.
Very well, very well. I want to be respectful of your time, man. Before I get your thoughts on the gubernatorial race, which I think is on everybody's minds, I wanted to ask about intelligence agencies. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on the Central Intelligence Agency abroad and the FBI here domestically? Because it does seem like they're both a bit out of control when you have the FBI going after parents. And, I think you had John Brennan, former CIA director last year. He publicly stated that Catholics were a group to worry about or something like that. But before we get to the governor race, any thoughts on those entities?
Yeah, I think our three-letter agencies are terrifying. Quite honestly, they've been weaponized against the American people by the far left. They are compromised. And the fact that we have January 6 protesters and gulags who have been denied due process of law, who have been considered guilty until proven guilty, is completely un-American. This is the stuff we read about happening in China and Venezuela and places like that. And here we are in America. And there seems to be no justice. So, you want to talk about brave leadership, what it will take to call those agencies into accountability. It very much feels like David versus Goliath. They've bullied and threatened the American people, targeting parents. Absolutely, targeting parents. You can drive a car through a parade at Christmas and run people over and not be treated the same way as a parent protesting his daughter being raped by a transgender student in the bathroom. Again, it is the insanity of the agenda on the left right now. Everything is assault on our very way of life. what we believe in our family unit. And so those three-letter agencies, I mean, I would love to see a poll on that. I think the distrust of the American people, it has to be, I mean, I would think in the upper 80s or 90% if you were to take a poll. I think the average American is scared after January 6th of those three-letter agencies. And that is not acceptable. So we need high-level, courageous leadership to go after those organizations and get them back in check.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And then to end off on, unless there's anything else you want to cover, and I do want to note, if I could just add one comment, it does seem like you're trying to bring more power back to the state level, and kind of take it back from the federal level, which I do appreciate. But just the governor race, ma'am, gubernatorial race. Any thoughts you want to or takes you want to share on that here in the state of Georgia?
Yeah, I don't know that I am at all in a position to comment on that. I can't really
Sure.
tell what's going on. The polling seems to be a little bit unreliable, it seems. And I'm definitely focused on my race. I'm trying to get in the runoff here and win my seat. But I'm not sure what's going to happen in the governor's race. I don't. I don't know. I do not
Mhm.
know. Can't really say. It's I talk to people all day long and I hear a little bit of everything. So I can't make a read on that. What do you think?
It's tough to say, miss. It's, I the mainstream media, they just have lost all trust, so it's like, how do
Right.
when have they not lied? So, it's like, why
Right.
you can't really, buy their
Mm-mm,
numbers. But
mm-mm,
I do think that it's a lot closer than they're leading on, and I think
mhm,
it's interesting to note, if indeed Kemp is winning by so much, why didn't NBC, do this hit piece, or basically lying and saying that Donald Trump no longer endorses Purdue, who, for those that don't know, is Kemp's biggest opponent in this
mhm,
race. Doesn't really
mhm.
make a whole lot of sense. But again, I want to be respectful of your time, Mallory Staples. Anything else that you wanted to mention that we didn't cover, as far as national security, election integrity, economy, security services, anything like that?
I would just encourage people, to please vote for me tomorrow, Mallory Staples in Georgia 6. But also, we've put up on all our social media platforms a QR code where people can go check their vote to be sure it is registered. We would just ask people to guard your vote. Once you walk out of the voting poll, we're not finished at that point. We need you to please check and be sure that your vote was counted, and just be a watchdog. We need all the citizens to be aware, and when they're in the precincts voting for any irregularities or anything happening, just need everybody to be watchdogs for that. And then please, please, please check and be sure your vote was counted. And come out and vote tomorrow. Staples for Congress.
Staplesforcongress.com, I believe. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Mallory Staples. Please do go and participate tomorrow, folks.
yes,
Wherever you
please.
are, if there's an election nearby, please do so. So thank you again, Mallory
Right.
Staples, and we'll see everybody next time. And thanks to the audience as well.
Thank you, Addie. This was great. Thank you for letting me be here.